just wanted to say thank you, one and all, for joining us today. And I, like you, hopefully I'm going to be learning a lot. And for some of you, this might be brand new. For some of you, this is a refresher. But, you know, I just wanted to kick off the meeting and introduce the people that are running this program for the town of Eastham and for the town of Orleans. Sandy Bain has been our coordinator extraordinaire for many, many years and has been really almost independently leading this effort. So this wouldn't be happening without her. And I would say that from the grassroots effort that many of you have participated in, the town of Eastham has embraced 2 pond remediation projects and is currently working on assessment of a 3rd. So that is all great work, and it wouldn't happen without people like you. Seriously, and likewise, we have a gem next door, Carolyn Kennedy, who is leading the effort on the pond sampling and also the effort on the saltwater side for the MEP project. And so since Eastham is again new in partnering on these efforts, Carolyn has been incredible resource for both Sandy and myself and the town as a whole. And I'm leaning on them, I know probably way more than I should, but I hope that these efforts, both the pond monitoring effort and on the saltwater side, the Nauset estuary effort, really gels together plans for our wastewater management watershed efforts going forward. And I think the more partnerships and we form within the community is essential. Not only to have such diligent volunteers that reduce the cost to the town, and we could do this if we had to pay staff, so that alone, but I think when you're involved in a project like this, that I hope that you embrace it and are as passionate about it as I am, and I know you all are. So, you know, with that said, I'm not going to take over any more of the training time. Carolyn is going to kind of lead us through this. And as I said, I'm learning just with you. We tried to supplement a few little kits and resources for you all that maybe you didn't have before. And we're just going to go forward and make it even better and greater. So thank you. And I think both Carolyn and Sandy
I
are
want
going
to say a few words.
Okay.
Carolyn is definitely going to do the training. I forget between, and I think you do too, between September and April, I forget how to calculate the almeter, I forget how to rate the sampler, so this is good for me. I just wanted to say that I am very grateful for all of your dedication. You guys have been absolutely wonderful. Some of you have been doing this for 12, 14 years, and I'm amazed. As people age out and their legs won't get into the rowboats anymore, we find replacements. Joanna is our replacement, new replacement. Joanna
You didn't say how to get in and out of a rowboat.
Maybe even a canoe.
She's like that. She keeps all those as secrets.
Yes, we're not telling you till after we get you sucked in. But it's been really, really fun for me. It's been really educational for me. I've enjoyed our parties and your dedication. I thank you very much. And I'm very grateful that the town is taking this over, believe me. It's time, it's really time. And thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
And I'm delighted that Carolyn's here to help us.
Okay, well, as I heard somebody else say this morning, they came to town a few years ago and the first thing they knew they were involved in sampling, and that happened with me too. My mother lives in Orleans, and when I came to be with her, she said, oh, I have two of her peers, 2 friends, who each have a daughter about your age. Maybe we should invite them over and you can get to know each other. Well, she did. It was late one afternoon. We go sit on the patio and get to know each other, and abracadabra, I watched them come in and I knew both of them already. And was involved in, they really got me involved in lots of things, including water sampling. So, here we are, 13 years later. So, I think most of you have been already out there doing all of this stuff.
Yep.
But we wanted to make sure, as we were doing this, and we were coordinating our efforts with other towns, that the data, the stuff we collect, the numbers and the observations are similar across towns. Because eventually, if this ever happens, we'd like to have a giant database that would put all of the data from the whole of Cape in, and all of the towns could then compare what they're doing. But as we've discovered, unless you're all doing the same thing in similar fashion, then it's apples and oranges, and it's stew. It's not numbers and not data that you can do much with. So this is an effort to just for all of us to be on the same page. And it's good for me to have gone through this because I took all of the different instructions that you've gotten over the years, put them all together on 2 pieces of paper, and we actually have never had written instructions in Orleans for freshwater water sampling. So it made me do my own homework. So we've always done it with a mentor. We have fewer ponds than you do, and we just have done it with a mentoring system.
And you had a limited number of samplers.
Very limited number of samplers have been doing ponds. So, and some of them at some point are going to age out.
Yes.
So if
Age out.
well, you can go through the operations
Preschool.
and HIP operations and lots of other things.
Happens at preschool.
So I've discovered lots of things about the population of Orleans.
It's the oldest
During
in the
this,
state.
I know that, but during the summer, last summer recruited 60 volunteers to help us with our estuary sampling, so it's always changing in of people. So, as you know, you do sampling in the spring at your ponds, and you also do it between August 15th and the end of September. And those 2 efforts are slightly different. You're basically taking the same equipment and the same measurements out there with one slight change. You're putting the water in different size bottles. So it's not a whole lot different. It just takes a little bit, slightly different technique. So you have in front of you a sheet that's your data sheet that you would go out and collect information on. Joanna.
Here, I'm gonna do this rowboat, I get a data sheet.
Joanna needs it, for sure.
Okay.
You have a sheet that says Eastham April supplies and sampling depths.
The colored one,
Has a list at the top of it.
colored on the other side.
Yep. Eventually, these are going to be compiled into nifty little clipboards that we have, and they're going to be laminated so that most of these you can take out on the water.
Yes, ma'am.
So they're for your reading now, but obviously if you took these pieces of paper out, they would be soggy shortly. So we've gotten to laminating them. So there's a sampling depths, and on the back of it's going to be a diagram when you get yours.
These are not high
There's
quality.
a spring sampling protocol, a fall sampling protocol, with each, those are 2 pages, and a diagram about how to do a dissolved oxygen meter.
And just, so we're going to provide each team these little clipboards, and inside we have laminated all of the instructions so that at least, it stays grouped together for you.
So on any given day, if you don't remember how to do this, you just pull out your handy dandy little
So
instruction sheet.
instead of being on the door, it'll be in there.
Okay, so, since you all have a pond that you've been doing, and you know how to get there, and you know what your boat is gonna look like and all that stuff, right?
Joanna will have to work on that.
Okay, so can I just ask before we start, do I go out all by myself the first time or?
No.
I will train
Okay,
you.
or you go in pairs like with the saltwater one?
I will have to train your partner as well, so, I mean.
Do
you'll
I
be
have a
trained
partner?
today. I hope so. Roger recruited a lovely lady, but she had to work today.
Oh, okay.
So we'll be working
She's
on
also a rookie
on
though,
the
right?
assignments.
She's a, yeah, they'd be
And
working
which
so I could work with-
ponds, like, do I get?
Yeah, I
Okay,
have
just-
assignments here.
Okay,
Most of them
that's
are-
fine, we don't,
Yeah,
that's,
okay.
okay, thanks.
Is this data sheet the same as
Yeah.
one we've all?
Yeah.
No changes?
Okay, so, Sandy at her house has equipment. So depending on which pond you're doing, the sheet that says Eastham April supplies and guests gives you a list of the stuff that you need to pick up or take with you. And depending on which pond you're doing down below, there are protocols about at which depths you take water samples.
None of this is different.
Yeah, I just tried to put it all in one place for you. Okay? So, just gives you a checklist of things to go and pick up. And if you want to put it in those orange buckets, I find I can put everything in the orange bucket, take off, and depending on whether you doing this by boat or canoe or whatever, I just put the bucket in the bottom of the, I use a canoe. I can put it in there with my ice cooler and ice pack and be on my way. So anything that look strange or unusual or will get to the... Okay, so you get out on the pond, there should be a buoy
Yes.
out there on each pond that says research on it. It's a white buoy, go along, and depending on what kind of, you guys use kayaks, rowboats, what do you use? Kayaks, rowboats, canoe. I use a canoe, and I have, most of the ponds in Orleans no longer have buoys on them. I wish they did, but they don't. So when I get out there to the appropriate spot, which I know now by memory, because what I did many years ago for Eastham and then Orleans was to do a map of the bottom of the pond. It's called a bathymetry map. And if you want to see the ones for Eastham, I'm sure Jane or
They're on,
Sam can show you.
they're in the SMAS report, which is on the Water Management Committee website.
So, the idea is to to go to the deepest spot and then get a profile of what's happening to the water column all the way down. So whether you tie yourself to the buoy that's there, because I don't know how much weight is on the bottom of that, whether you'd be dragging it or not, or you want to find some handy dandy little anchor to use. This is the one I take with me. It folds. Huh?
Serious.
It looks serious, but I'll tell you, if you're out there in a breeze, I've had times when the canoe is swinging against it and it's
Fun.
not adequate for holding me in one place, so we'd have to back up and start all over again. So I just want to think I got a goose hummock. It says 1.5 kilograms, so that's like 3 pounds. Anyway, whatever you use.
Does the depth change? Have we got any experience with, I'm thinking about sand moving
Yes,
with
yeah.
freezing and thawing and.
It also,
I wonder if
it also changes with the depth of groundwater.
Yeah.
The last 2 summers, we've had droughts. And so the amount of water in the pond is actually lower
Right.
than it has been at other times, so.
So then usually that's the first thing I'll do is I'll take,
Depth.
yeah,
Full depth.
So we're
especially
gonna,
for this time of the year because the water level is probably a little higher.
well, and you can probably tell that from the shoreline and what
Right,
you're used to
right.
seeing too. Whether the shrubs along the edges are really drowned or if their toes are not in the water.
Can I just ask a question? So for the volunteers that have been doing this, our buoys that are out there aren't they're not to anchor off of. So you do you have the need to anchor down there or in your own kayak?
You need to stabilize it. What
Okay.
we do,
You're on
the
boat,
ice,
yeah.
the oars, the paddles to
Yeah.
connect the 2 kayaks together.
Mhm.
And the buoy will go in one of ours and the other that prevents us from moving. And that's work.
Okay.
For most of us, they just tie off the buoy.
Yeah.
Or just take the buoy, and pull it over the strut and
Right.
it holds us.
So that could, the buoy would hold you, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
okay.
Depends on how
Yeah.
high the water is.
It's about a 40-pound weight.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ones in Orleans.
So unless
didn't
it's
have that
really
much weight on
windy.
them.
The wind's blowing that way, I'm not gonna be out there.
Yeah, right.
That's
Well, the kayak has a lower berth.
Look out the window and say no.
Not 45 mile an hour wind.
Higher, so that
Okay.
could push things around.
Okay, just a little hint for you. I have a number of people who use kayaks, and this is a strap that can go from the kayak paddle putting the Velcro in the middle onto something in your kayak or you. And when you get to the spot you're going to anchor, you toss the paddle over the side parallel to your kayak, and it's out of your hands and out of your way.
Ah,
So you're not thinking about how am I going to balance the paddle and all this equipment I've got to deal with. So if a kayak leash works, paddle leash works.
Where did you get that, Carolyn?
I think goose hummock.
Do something.
and is that what they call it?
A leash for a kayak paddle? Yeah, I think so.
I think
Something like
call
that.
it a leash.
Leash, yeah.
A leash for dogs, you know.
Do you know how much those cost?
I did it so long ago.
It's on the tag.
You can use, yeah, you can use a piece of rope. The nice thing about this is it all stuff.
Yep.
Okay, so you're out on the water, you've got yourself settled. So what we're basically going to do is go through the data sheet from top to bottom. I find that the easiest thing to do. And so if you find the piece of paper that says Eastham Freshwater Pump Protocol for Spring, this is what we're going to do. I also highly suggest that before you get out there, you label whatever you're using, the bottles or the vials, and put all the information on them with a Sharpie. Because once you get out there and this gets wet or cold, you cannot write on it. So on the checklist of things to do ahead of time is to write on it the date, the town, the name of the pond, and the depth at which you're taking this sample.
Carolyn, may I say something about the, you will have done your secchi before you start. Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm talking about preparation
Yeah.
before you get out.
In terms of these bottles, Carolyn had a great idea, which was color code them. And it's hard to write on the tops, as you may see, because they're concave. When you're out there, it's hard to even read them. So what she suggested, and I did, and you'll see this when you come to get your bottles, we color coded them. So green, and I wrote on it TPTN on the side, but I want you to start thinking color and which sample it is, so that,
We'll get there.
yeah, okay.
Okay, so label. All right. So I think we've talked about collecting all the equipment and the freezer packs. Next thing you want to do as you're getting your equipment or getting to the boat is to turn on the dissolved oxygen meter, because these meters need to warm up before they will work appropriately for you. So those of you sitting around a table, there's either an on-off button in ones that say YSI 55 on them, and the other ones, there's a green button, top left-hand.
That's much.
Put it away, Joanne.
Well, we can do the buttons.
Yes, oh, I'm sorry, yes you do. Sorry.
Green button.
Yeah, green button.
Green button, just push on it.
And you've got a 50-foot.
While we talk.
We'll figure it out.
That's all you're gonna do right now.
Amy's always up to a challenge.
There you go.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So you get out there and you're gonna look around, fill in the top of the section with the name and all that good stuff. And then you're gonna look around and look at weather conditions and water conditions. And I will tell you, having just gone through 18 ponds worth of data for 13 years, when people don't fill in the blanks, you can't make up for it later. So as you go down the paper, either put in a not available or something, but fill in every single blank as you go. Okay? So you're going to look at water conditions, and these ask about plants at the top. I'm going to come back to plants if we have time at the end. Okay, weather conditions, cloudy, windy, whatever it is. You don't know the. When you talk about wind, you're talking about the direction it's coming from. So, and your boat's going to tell you that because it's going to point into the wind too if you get one. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is to use the Secchi disc. And we can thank Dr. Secchi, whoever he was, for the invention of this.
He was an admiral. It was Admiral Secchi.
Okay, you know more about it than I do. A disc with a lead weight on the bottom with a tape measure attached. Since we're playing in the world of science here, I encourage you to use meters and millimeters and things in the metric system. And I guess some of your things are in
One or
meters
two
and
of our
some.
tapes are only in inches, but I have written that on them, and I can convert. If you come up with feet, I can convert.
Okay, but my suggestion is pull one out, save Sandy the work. Take the one out of the closet, I can see that one has feet on it. Some have feet on one side and
Yeah.
meters on the other. Okay, so I encourage you to work in meters, save Sandy some work.
Google.
So,
Perfect.
the suggestion is that if you were to simply put this over the side, of course without leaning, because you don't want your boat to go out from underneath you, and let this down, and you went plunk all the way to the bottom, it's going to make a cloud of muck that's going to come up into the water column, and then you're not going to see much of anything. So the suggestion is that the first thing you do, rather than take total depth, is to do what we call measure disappearing and reappearing. So what you're going to do is to allow this to go down, 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 until you can't tell the difference between the black and the white. Okay? And at whatever level the water is at that moment, pinch it, bring it up, and read whatever that is. So in this case, it's a meter is about a yard long, it's 39 inches long. There's a meter, so it's 1 m. The place I pinched it is
70 centimeter?
okay, 7.78.
Oh, I'm sorry, 7.5.
So if it's less than a meter, it's 0.7. Here's the 7, and I'm just above the halfway mark, so we're going to call it 8. So think about playing with these till you're comfortable with using the meter system and use it that way. Okay, so whoever's with you on the clipboard is then going to record the descending, disappearing measurement. Then you're going to let it down a little further till you really can't see it, and then come up very slowly, bit by bit by bit, till it reappears. And that's going to be your reappearing measurement. Once you got those two, you can do it more than once if you're unsure of it. You're going to let it slowly all the way down to the bottom, hopefully not creating a cloud of stuff from the bottom, and measure that total distance.
So are you using a scope or not?
Depends on whether you have one or not.
Basically, if you've been using it, use it. If you
And note it
haven't,
on the data sheet as you're using it.
don't worry.
I never
No, we
use it
haven't.
because
I think most of us haven't been using it.
But shouldn't, for consistent, we're talking about consistent, shouldn't you make a decision whether you're going to use it or not?
I guess. What's the reason? Oh, we have
It's a tube.
a viewer that helps you see.
Well, it eliminates the glare on the
Oh, right.
surface.
It's easy.
So for consistency, what we do and what this says is to go on the shady side of the boat, if you have sun.
Yeah, that's what I do.
And take off your sunglasses so everybody has the same amount of glare on the surface as you do this.
Polarized sunglasses.
Not polarized.
Not
Not
polarized,
because then you can't really see.
okay? Whether you choose to use aquascopes or not, it should be, if you're using one, it should be noted on there, and it asks you, was an aquascope used?
How many people are still using those? I mean, we've had them for years, Roger.
All ours disappeared,
We've been using them, okay. So I think you should continue if you are.
but just note it on the thing.
Yeah, just note it, I guess.
Okay, so on the shady side of your boat, without your sunglasses, you have lowered it till it disappeared, on down a little bit, come back till it reappeared, measured all of those things, noted them, and let it down all the way to the bottom, and noted the total depth. You're going to use that total depth a number of times, so it's really,
I'm sorry, why are we not using our sunglasses?
because everybody's on the same playing field. So everybody has,
But polarization's definitely going to make a difference.
yes, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
But some people have them and some people don't, so if everybody does not do it with sunglasses, then you're on the same playing field.
I think this is in the noise, maybe. What we're doing is.
My regular glasses are polarized
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So,
Just
and I
keep-
can't do it without
Can't do
glasses.
it without.
I won't be
Yeah,
able to
right.
see anything.
Find my
You get a braille tape.
I love it.
Okay, the other thing that you can gain as you're doing this and you're looking at it, without falling over, is what color is the water on top of this white section? It may look some kind of light brown, like the handle of that. That you just go over there, it might be green, it might be really green. So that will give you another clue as to what watercolor is, because as you just look into it, a lot of people say to me, it looks blue. Yes, reflection of the sky, whatever, so. So when you get there, you might just say, okay, this gives me a better idea of what color it is. And it may look different as you go down through the water column too. Okay, we done Secchi readings? Okay, we finished page 1. Okay, dissolved oxygen, back to our dissolved oxygen meters. You've now let it warm up. You have a chart. It looks like this. And basically, I think you can probably do this without the chart. So take the wire off so you can get to the get to all of the buttons.
Do you see how easily
I know.
This
These-
one's much bigger, much bigger.
These have just been reconditioned for the spring and recalibrated. So the little sponge that's inside each of these should be
Wet.
nice and wet.
So you can have a light.
This is the only finger I can reach that sponge with. I don't know about you guys, but fingers you use.
Yeah. Yeah, way down here, but yes, I understand.
Yes.
Is it wet? Good.
It's inside.
Mine doesn't even read.
Inside the house.
So for those of you that have the YSI 55s, it's hard to find that sponge because it's in the back of this chamber here. The ones that have the bigger models, you can find the sponge by pulling out the little sponge with the other end.
I've done that, jam it in here. Oh, okay, so, right, so it is in there, but you don't.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I
can't
can't,
I can't
reach over right on, this one I can,
Okay,
yeah.
so
It's right inside.
each of, just to let you know how this works,
Don't spit on that.
each of these has 2 mechanisms in it. One, and I don't encourage you to do this unless it gets really filthy, but one is a thermometer, which is that little silver probe on the outside. And then inside the head of this is a chemical reaction going on which allows you to determine the dissolved oxygen. Okay, so this, when you're calibrating this, you want this to be in 100% humidity environment, which is what's created by the fact you have a sponge in there and it's wet. And so this has been sitting like this since you picked it up, or since somebody left it off last time.
Carolyn, how often are you supposed to put water, the deionized water, in to moisten the sponge?
You're supposed to keep it constantly wet.
So then, every time you use this, you should
Check
that,
yeah.
and then, does it hurt to add some, just?
What I do is probably the night before I know I'm going out, I squirt some in there. Oh, we got water in here.
There are 2 of them that have water. Oh, that one has it.
I squirt it in there, I let the sponge absorb what it's going to absorb, and then I pour it out.
Oh, that's a good idea.
But this, as I was looking at it, when I pulled it out, it was damp, so
Because I imagine if you put too much water in there,
Yeah.
it could
Yeah.
mess up the.
it's not going to go much of anywhere because it's
Encased.
built to take it. Okay, so you've turned it on, you've left it, it's warmed up, and now you're going to take an up arrow and a down arrow. Put a thumb on each one or whatever finger you want, and press them together, down, and let go. Okay? So the screen has changed, right?
Nope, right. See what?
in order to perform what we're gonna do
These
here,
two arrows.
Yeah, I did that.
Okay.
These two.
this is
Yeah.
like, when you put the key in your
Yep.
engine, turn on your car, your engine now goes through all kinds of diagnostics to make sure things are working
Yes.
in your engine.
Yep.
And all those little numbers and so on that come on and then go off. Well, this needs to do the same thing. It needs to calibrate itself. And hopefully, since these have just undergone reconditioning, they're in actually pretty good shape. So, at this point, press the key that says mode. And hopefully you'll come up with a screen that has a little either percent sign way to the right side or a milligrams per liter. Yes?
Yeah.
Yep, you got it? Okay?
I couldn't feel anything.
Yeah, I can't get all the way in there.
Here's this.
Oh,
Between
I
90
know.
This is the IO, so.
yeah, you have that one? That meter?
We have two of those.
I think this is, we usually use
We have 3 of these small.
You got that far? All right, we want this to be, in order to perform this procedure, it has to say percent.
Yeah.
And the mode key gets you from percent to milligrams per liter and back and forth. Okay?
So this says press enter.
Yes, so now you're gonna press enter.
No. Where does it say press mode?
Up
Very
at the
little.
top, it says
way
tie
up
up your
here. I'm
mode, it says
following
after
the
warm up,
picture.
press mode key to get it into percent.
Nice.
Yeah, and there's
Okay.
milligrams per liter. There we go. So let's keep it on. There's, okay.
All right,
There, okay.
this one has made its way through several stages already.
No, actually, just. Okay. Is that a promise?
So did we press mode before or after we pressed the two up, the up and down arrow?
100.1.
This one actually says press it before.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
8.8.
So let's go with what it says here. So you've got, every meter is now in percent. Press the up and down keys and let them go.
So there's one.
Right, that's your first.
I wasn't sure what mode they were in when they turned them off, so. Okay, now you come up with a screen that says ALT at the top right-hand corner. You get CAL, okay. So it tells you it's in the calculation mode, which is what, calibration mode, which is what you want it to be.
Right.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to be persistent and push it more than once.
We were already at
Okay,
this.
so now it's in the calibration mode. And up here it says ALT.
ALT, yeah.
Okay, everybody got an ALT on their screen?
No.
Oh,
So
We're
just
past
past
that.
it, we're just past
We
it.
How do
already
you go
did
back?
it.
Yeah, go back. Go back.
Sometimes there are
We
different
can't.
orders.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
I
you
know.
go back.
You can always go back to the,
Yeah, we're,
You're way ahead.
yeah.
okay.
We're
I did
done.
the.
Charles, you got it?
It's like Christine.
So, yeah.
Because
So far, it's
hitting the buttons
sure the
like.
farm is
At the,
That's different stuff, it's fresh water.
These chocolate
This thing doesn't want you to be frozen because she's hit it.
So you're at percent. You gotta go back.
What's
You
that?
gotta go back to get reading started.
Hemingway, yeah.
Have an optical
And our spot is further,
So it's like,
but it was like
right away.
meter deep, so.
So we turn on.
Now we can always see the bottom.
Have all those two together to get into it, then you
Yeah,
can move on to the
but you
next.
should even so.
okay.
But, like.
All right, everybody there? So, basically, we're dealing
These were simple.
with ponds that are at sea level. So the
Yeah,
You just got
altitude
to
is
the, you got to
zero.
the next phase and.
So you're gonna hit the enter key. Enter key is like the enter key on your computer, just moves you on to the next thing.
Okay, so now you go to percentage.
Okay, this one has a percentage in the middle. It still has that CAL in the bottom left-hand corner,
Calibration.
and it says you're gonna calibrate to 100, which is what you wanna do. Okay?
See, now this is not.
Where you record the calibration
We were,
is your
this was
data
like
sheet.
98.
No, we went to leave it.
Is that this?
Okay, so you're calibrating
You probably
in
don't
an
have-
environment of 100% humidity, which is what's in there. Okay, hit the enter key again. it comes up with salinity, parts per thousand. We're in freshwater ponds, we're gonna assume that there's no salinity. So we're gonna press the mode key again,
Okay, we did it for the estuaries.
okay? And then you should get,
We're pressing mode.
So just,
yes, no, enter,
well, yeah, it says record on your data
okay?
sheet.
There you go.
So you should get something close to 100% and a temperature in the bottom right-hand corner.
Salinity.
Okay.
And if it were anything
Yep.
different, you
You
could
there,
always
Charles?
adjust
You
it
there?
to get to zero.
Do you wanna do it again, or you got it?
Enter key there, percent.
How many of you are more comfortable with the written directions that we have had? Is that easier for you? We thought that this was easier, but
That's fine.
Either way.
either way.
I usually read them to Don and we should
Okay, so now you're ready to take your probe out. Put this someplace safe so it's not gonna land in the drink. Since this is like a $500 piece of equipment, we don't want to use them.
You know if they flood this.
Do not fill it.
Good to know.
Okay,
Well, it usually has a string on it that you tie,
you
right?
can put a string on it if you wish.
Yeah, this one has a string.
That's the first thing I do is tie it to the.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, these cords are marked at a half a meter, and then once every half a meter thereafter.
Ours are half a meter and then full meters after.
Full meters.
Now, this one says, okay, this one.
That's
That would be the
yours.
first one.
That's
yours.
All right. So hopefully you don't have enough wind or waves or whatever, that with the weights that are on this, it's going to basically go straight down. But there are times and places when I know it doesn't do that. You kind of have to let it sink to the right depth, pull it up so it's pretty vertical, and then do the reading. Okay, so this is a great place to have two people, one of whom is going to do the writing and the other the reading. And the readings on your data sheet, it asks you for these readings in milligrams per liter. So right now, you're going to hit the mode key and go from percent to milligrams per liter. And those are the readings you're going to take. Okay? So you're going to let this down to, everybody's going to do a half a meter down. So you're going to put this down to water level, whatever water level is. And you're going to jiggle it slightly. It can be up and down or sideways, because what's happening is that this dissolved oxygen probe in here is actually, the oxygen is going through that membrane that surrounds the top of it, and is interacting with the probe, and the probe is actually converting that oxygen into something else. So it's actually destroying the oxygen, if you will. So in order for you to have a fresh supply of oxygen around this until it settles, you need to move it just slightly. So if we were to put this in a glass of water, it would eventually eat all the oxygen in that's in that water. Okay, so you've jiggled and jiggled and jiggled, and at some point, usually the temperature settles itself first, and then the milligrams per liter settle themselves within
Within,
100 or so.
yeah.
So you wait for it to settle, or you take the best guess of the middle of the readings, and you write those on your sheet. So then, depending on what depth of pond you're going to, and Sandy's giving you a list by pond of the levels at which you're going to do things. But you've already taken the total depth of this pond, and what I do is then take my sheet with my partner and say, okay, if this pond is 5 meters deep, I don't need to do anything from 5 on down, and I just draw a diagonal line through everything beyond that. So I know I'm going down. If it's 5 meters deep, I'm going down to 4 meters with my readings. So I just scratch out everything beyond that, and then we say to ourselves, okay, I need to take a reading at 1 meter. So I take this down to 1 meter, and I do the same thing. Wait, give her the reading. 2 meters.
You need to make sure that's at the water level,
Yeah.
not
Yes,
at
I'm holding this up, but this is at the
Right.
this is at the surface of the water. Okay.
0.6.
Right? You do not want to get this in the muck in the bottom, because the muck in the bottom of most of these ponds has a lot of sulfides and things in it. That's why it smells like rotten eggs, and it will literally burn up that probe, and it will destroy the probe. It's not a matter of, so You do not want to get them into the bottom. That's why you're being careful and keeping at least a meter off the bottom, okay? When you get through and you pull it up, you're gonna take your squirt bottle and you're gonna wash off this whole head of the probe. And that gets rid of any little particles of algae or whatever else. And then wet, you're gonna put it back into its housing. If you're only doing one pond that day, you can then turn it off. If you're gonna go do another pond, leave it on. And go to the other pond and then turn it off. Okay? Any questions? You wanna do it again?
Okay, I have just a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So of the things that we absolutely should not do, the things not to do list.
Yes.
You don't want the chamber to dry out.
No.
You want to keep this wet, and you don't want to touch the probe, and you don't want the probe to hit the bottom.
Yep, and you don't
Is that
wanna
pretty
lose this
much-
overboard.
Did anything do that?
You don't wanna lose this overboard.
And don't
Don't lose
fall
it.
out of your
Yeah.
fire.
Carolyn, I just want to point out that on your sheets, it says something about record,
Calibration value.
when you calibrate, record the values. We have not been doing that, and it's not on our form.
Yeah, it's on our estuary stuff, and we're using these things for both protocols, so.
Who's that?
It's not.
Where it says record the
On
calibration
the
percent.
last block of color over here on the chart,
Yeah.
it says record calibration value on the data sheets. The meter is in tune and working, like your car, if value that you have when you get through the calibration process is between 95 and 105. If it's outside that, don't bother because it's not working. You might get the temperature reading wrong, but the out will be false readings.
So, to the point about consistency, shouldn't we record that then? I mean,
Okay.
wouldn't that be an important,
We have in the past been told on Ed's form anyway, SMS form, if it is between if it is outside 95 to 105, just note that.
We write it at the
And we
top.
write it on the form. Yeah.
So you could, anywhere on that
Where do you
form.
want this recorded?
In the SMAS form, of what they asked us to say was recorded, if it's outside that range, just write it on the form. And you've been doing that in general.
Was it
Yeah.
even within the range we did it?
Not,
I didn't.
not on
Oh,
freshwater.
oh, okay.
The
On
reason,
saltwater we
the
did.
reason that
Yeah,
I've
saltwater
trained
we
people
did.
to do it is that it makes me know that they actually did the calibration. Because if you don't do the calibration, you really don't know that this was working that
I
day.
would say definitely include.
Doesn't matter
Just,
where you
just,
put it,
yeah,
just
wherever
get
you
it
would
on
like to
there.
put it,
You could just
circle
put
it wherever you'd
calibrated,
like.
calibrated with
between
accepted
whatever.
level, yes,
Yeah.
no, as opposed
Or
to,
just put
Yeah,
I mean,
CALOK
yeah, that's good.
would work. Okay,
Somewhere.
right next to the Sechi readings, or wherever you want to
Yeah,
put
there's
it.
a little space right there.
Space there.
Yeah, perfect.
Would be the
Yep.
best.
So that's the reason I get people to do it, is because then I know that they have not just turned the thing on and gone and started. Okay, any other-
Sandy, are we gonna get paid more for all this additional stuff?
well, you know your value.
We're getting a bucket, an orange bucket.
Your value
Here's
is
your
volunteer
bonus.
in the state of Massachusetts is like $27 an hour. So. Okay, anything else about those stitches?
And I wanted to point out as you clean that, we have not been doing the cleaning of the probe. And that's the good thing that Orleans is teaching us. And we have bottles that you will see in the supply room, which have deionized water in them. And probably that little bit that's in there will last you the 2 samplings for sure that you're gonna do.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna turn it off.
Manage that.
Spelled wrong.
That was good.
That was good, huh?
Oh, there was something else, Carolyn, that Krista has pointed out to us. If you jam that probe in all the way, you're never going to get it out.
Yeah.
She has said, just get it in there and don't push it as far as it would go, because it's very
And on
difficult
those,
to
it
pull out.
popped the
And those
sponge
it
right
pops,
off the
yeah.
other side.
Now, the YSI 55s, you'll actually pop
At 550.
the cap off the other end. There is a
see the bottom.
rubber ring
I didn't use it.
just at the head of the probe there, where the wire comes out. And all you need to do is to get that within the,
Use like that.
right here, there's an O-ring, and all you really need to do is get that O-ring inside, well, it seals better if it's wet, that's the only reason I'm doing that. Just as long as that gets within the housing, all it needs to happen.
So there will be water.
Yes,
You're
so
gonna
we'll
get
get everybody in your little kit of, the
In the-
squeezing in the
So
jug
that-
in the closet too, if you need more.
So that lasts the year. Well, in fact, it'll last me 3 years.
That jug, it's gonna last 5 years.
If you run out, you just fill this like Coke or something.
Okay, what we've got left to do is to take water samples.
Let's see what your
So-
readings go.
You have a colored picture sheet, I think. What Sandy was getting.
Okay.
It's got pictures on, you've seen these pictures before.
Okay, so before you take off, you need to know how many levels you're gonna do your particular pond. Everybody's gonna do it at 1/2 meter, and you need to be prepared with however many sets of these you need. So I started doing this 2-colored thing, one for one set of ways that this is processed, and this one for the other way. To me, it would be helpful to the person in the lab, because she could grab all the yellow ones and do processing of those and grab all the other color, whatever it is. It also is helpful to me, when I'm out in my canoe, I know what I'm about to do next, I just grab the right color. I don't have to stop and read the top of it. So, for some things, you're simply going to collect a water sample, just plain old water sample. And you're going to fill up the tube to this mark that we put on the side, which is 40 milliliters. And then outside, these things are really hard to read, so we've just gone through and marked them all. So you don't have to wear your specs to read them. The other one, you're also going to fill all the way up, but you're going to filter the water before you put it in, okay? So next comes,
That's where Stephen.
for most people, their most unfavorite piece of the first couple of times.
The little plastic thing on the filter.
This is the big pool.
I like that, yeah, I noticed that. The tap.
Don't you break the seal, Mike, breaks up the other side.
So this is actually called, I think, a beta bottle. There are also alpha bottles. Alpha bottles are not made out of the same plastic ingredients. And these are made with plastic and stainless steel in such a manner is that when you take a water sample, the water is not interacting with the materials of this bottle to create some chemical that the water didn't originally have in it. So it's not just a hunk of any old plastic and any old metal. So in order to capture the water inside this, obviously the end caps come off, and this piece in the middle also moves up and down. So come on close.
I
So
think I'm the only one that hasn't used one of these
Right.
things.
on each end is a little loop in the wire, and those 2 loops are going to come up, and one's going to go over the top of that, and one is going to go around that little pin that moves up and down there, okay? So the easiest thing to do is to put the one around the movable pin in its little housing over there first.
Pretend the boat's rocking.
Everybody, okay?
Yeah.
Now,
That's one.
this is armed and ready to fire, which means that you do not want to get your fingers in here.
You really don't.
You
But
really
you
don't,
will.
it hurts.
You will, one or 2 times.
You're only having one open, okay. well,
No, we're gonna
No, you'll
open
see.
the other one too. And that one's gonna go up top, so it's kind of balancing.
There's a lot of pressure.
So I'm not going to hit this thing and make it release, because it's not good for it either. There's obviously a big giant rubber band between the two, and so when you depress this top, those two pins are gonna shrink down, and this is gonna fly off, and that one's gonna fly off. And you make that happen by using a weight, which gets sent down the string. This is called a messenger, whatever you wanna call it. Okay. These also should have markings on them. So there is a 1/2 meter right there.
Yeah, and 1/2 meter's pink and the rest are black.
Okay? So what I'm gonna do is move my messenger above the depth at which I want to test. Okay? I'll put it over the side of the boat without leaning.
Everybody's wincing.
Let that mark go down to the water level, which I'm kind of using that chair as an example. Take the messenger and let the messenger, let it go, and let it slide down, and you'll hear it go, plump.
That's gonna be nice.
And when it does that, it's going to release these two pins, and these two things will come flying off. And capture your water sample. Okay? Now, you can take the water out of either of these valves. It might be a good thing if you close them off before you set the messenger down there. So, for one of these, the one that says TPTN on it, and you're to say TPTN is total phosphorus, total nitrogen. Total nitrogen, total phosphorus.
And those are gonna be green this year?
Green, and the DIN is going to be pink.
Okay, so total, whole water, whatever you want to call it, you're going to take straight out of here. So all I have is, I just pull this up, put it across my knees on the boat,
Self yourself.
wear my rain pants if it's cold outside. Put this under the spout. Turn the other end to let some air in so the water can come out. Tip it, let it run until I've got about 40 milliliters or more. And if it's a whole lot more than 40, you can just simply sort of spill a little out. They asked us, we discovered that we thought these were brand new and clean and whatever last year, but what we discovered is that they were getting some residual chemicals when they went to the lab. So what you can do is just, before you use it, just go alongside the boat and just swish it out, pour it out, clean off the cap.
They're not disposable?
They are.
They are,
Oh.
but they have, from
Apparently there
making
was-
them, there's chemicals.
Apparently there was some residual stuff in the ones we were using last year, so they asked us to rinse these out before we used them.
So your form that you're looking at, which says do not need to rinse, you do.
Yeah. Okay, the pictured piece of paper said you don't need to rinse, but in fact you really do.
And then you hope your Sharpie is a waterproof Sharpie.
I think,
The first bullet of the procedure says you don't need to rinse, but just to cross that out.
So should we do that before
Do
we
rinse
go out also?
I would rinse them in pond water, rinse them in the
No, but I
water.
mean, yeah, but before you're out there.
in the boat, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just do it while I'm right there. Because it,
Or like
rinse them in the same water you're
with
gonna
the salt
collect.
water, we put a little bit in of the water we're
Yeah.
testing, shake it up, pour it out, and
Yeah.
then put more of
Yeah,
the actual water.
Yeah.
So if there is residual, it's exactly what you're
right.
testing for.
Right. Okay, so TPTN, you're simply taking water out of your sampler, and the tricky thing about these is that sometimes these do not go on straight and they leak. So put it on tight, turn it upside down, make sure it's not gonna leak, because there's no point you're going out there to all this work and then losing your sample. It's really not fun. Okay, other one needs to be filtered. So we're gonna put some of our magic water into this. Put my finger over the end, filled it up. Hopefully put this thing down somewhere sanitary, relatively. begin to push it in, and as you push it in and it gets engaged, it clicks. Click. Okay? Then you're going to take a filter, which has a skinny end and a fatter end. The fatter end goes on here, and you just turn it slightly. Don't crank it. Just turn it slightly, and you will then get water out through your
So
filter.
those filters are already in there, and we don't.
Yes,
We don't have to.
prepackaged filters.
Yeah.
Good.
You probably want to take some extra filter.
At least we don't have to do it.
Okay, the instruction sheets say, take one filter for every,
It's like,
take one filter for every vial you're gonna fill. In some of our ponds, the water is so full of algae that it would take you 2 or 3 filters.
Yeah.
So I suggest you take a couple of extras, and if you don't use them, bring them back.
Yeah, please do, because there are a limited number of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What I do sometimes is when it gets clogged, I pump it to unclog it, to bring some of the silt back into the tube, and then I push the filter again. I get more water out of it.
oh,
You reusing them?
no,
you can't
no,
use
they're
it.
one,
Yeah, I
one
was
use.
the same way.
yeah,
Yes.
sample.
And I have told you bring an extra one in case you drop it. But
Oh, yeah.
Now we're
But
saying,
I have gone through 3 of these to get one set,
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
in some ponds. Probably not in the spring when there's not a whole lot of algae, but if you were doing something similar later on in summer, you probably would.
But we do use a different one at each level.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So, you also don't want to sort of rest this on here and just jam it down. I usually hold it so that I'm holding those 2 things slightly apart and pushing.
And it can be very hard.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
you get your aerobic exercise for the day here. So, there's my sample. Boy, I hit it on the nose. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay,
First, second.
really tight. These need to be tightening down this year. And make sure it's not going to leak. So these then go in your cooler on ice. And we're trying to do that, which prevents any organisms that are in there from either photosynthesizing or respiring. You want to get the sample as is, and these then are going to get frozen, go into the freezer, and when we collect them all together, then they go to the lab, and the lab processes them.
Luckily, Amy lives in Eastham, and I can
Yes.
just bring them over to her house. It's wonderful.
Is it okay to fill it up by drawing it into the syringe? You pour it in.
Yeah. Well,
I
took
think
it-
I've been like,
No, I just took it right out of here. I would take it right out of here. Obviously, I don't have any water.
well, I just
Yeah.
open the top and stick it in and draw it out with a
syringe.
syringe.
Open the top.
Um,
Oh, of the
Oh, you
sample.
can't-
Right, so I'm not taking the syringe apart.
Right.
Yeah, that was with the old
Yeah, that's
setting.
what we-
These
yeah.
new ones are a little bit different. The old ones, you had to pull it
Yeah.
to get to it.
Yeah.
With the spigot, you don't
Yeah, I
have to
just
do
use the
that.
spigot because you had less
Right.
chance for contamination, I would think.
I don't, that's probably.
Okay. We do then,
So you label your vials at each depth,
Yes.
obviously. And so you have, depending on the pond you have.
And the date.
yeah, the only one you're not going to know probably is what the bottom one is before you go out. So once you get to the point where you've figured out your total depth, the person who's doing your recording can grab that set of vials and record them before you ever get them wet. I mean, write them.
Yep.
I tend to, when I'm finished using
It can
this,
be, it's
to
really
put
close.
just put a knot right there,
Technically needed.
so that this thing can't slip and land on your toe, or someplace else you don't want it. And wind this valve back up. So you're gonna take samples at however many depths Sandy has told you to do for
Now,
your
this
pond.
doesn't change, this is the same.
Any questions about the sampler? So in the spirit of not moving any organisms or algae that are maybe potentially a nuisance someplace else, I bring this home, Setchi disc home, everything I've had in the water, the paddles and so whatever, and run them under a hose. And my kayak or canoe too, so that I'm not transporting organisms or algae from one pond to another. No doubt, there's things that stick to our equipment, but at least we can make the effort to be sanitary about what we're moving from one place to another.
So in April, and that will happen maybe in the summer, keep the summer sample. I'm gonna leave a hose on, because I'm gonna be away the last 2 weeks of April. I'm gonna leave a hose on, so that if you come to my house, lay those 2 pieces on the deck, hose them, leave them exposed to the air. Paul on 1 week and Roger and Donna on the second week that I'm gone, will come by at the end of the day and put them back in the closet when they're dry. So you can do that.
Hosing off this, hosing off, were you were leaving some equipment behind and rinsing it at your house? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Well, I'm saying when you come back from the pond and you're gonna rinse those 2 things, you can't hang on around till they dry, till the air dry. So just leave them on my desk. And those 2 pieces of equipment,
Okay,
those 2, the sucky and the
okay,
sampler.
we don't keep that with us.
No.
You'll have picked it up
Okay,
from her
gotcha.
the garage.
Okay.
I'll take you through it.
Yeah.
If you left
All
a
that stuff.
bottle of wine, you don't want to wait until it dries.
Yeah.
And there'll be paper towels in the closet in case.
I was gonna say if it's
You
raining.
gonna leave a hair dryer?
Yes.
So
Summer sample.
on this one, the DIN we're rinsing also?
Yes, all the vials.
Okay, so forget the, again, there's no
Yeah.
need to.
Do we leave this too? Do we leave the meter with sand?
Everything stays the
Yes.
same.
All the equipment,
Everything, that's good.
that's where the equipment lives, is in
Good.
the house.
Yep.
We don't have enough for everybody to take theirs home.
Hmm?
We don't have enough sets for everybody to
Gotcha.
take them home.
Well, now this equipment is being used in 2
Okay,
programs.
gotcha. We
So,
don't keep it.
you know, it was just one use for the ponds, but now we're using these meters for the MEP summer sampling, which is actually more frequent and on a much more rigid,
Are you
defined
supplying
schedule.
the ice chest and packed full of stuff, so everything?
Everything's in.
See that silver bag right there on the, that Henry Lynn bought those for us many, many years ago.
Oh.
I
And
have
she's
4 or
got
5 of them.
refrigerators
Little
there.
ones, yeah, in the refrigerator.
Got some Omaha steak? No, seriously, you can use those if you're.
I also have freezer packs in the
it's a
freezer.
fun group.
Most of them
Wine.
came from you, but they're there. But you might bring one of your own freezer packs or, because
Been
I don't know how
buying,
good
I guess
they
I
are.
haven't paid attention.
Okay,
What we tried to supplement what Sandy's had in the past with some additional organizational equipment, if you will. So we bought some buckets. Carolyn's suggestion that everybody throws in Orleans through her program, you know, your second disc, your
this will go in there.
your sampler. So we could even like set these up, so as you come in, obviously we have 11 ponds, so we have more teams that are sharing the equipment. So maybe we'll just give it a shot. I know Sandy's had this, you know, her home system and you all know it, obviously, so that's working fine. Just hopefully, you know, maybe this will help keep all the little parts together, but a little more coordinated. So we have, as I said, those clipboards with the instructions, and then maybe if you could just, when you bring your stuff back, you know, leave that all so it's together. We'll see if it helps. Maybe it will help.
Okay, so we've got
Okay,
one
we'll
more
see.
step to do here. Turn over your data sheet to the back side. And maybe she should explain this to you rather than I, because I do it in a different way. You're going to list each one of these vials has a label on it, and you're going to record the same information onto one line for each vial on
Yep.
that sheet. Go for it.
Which are you talking about?
The back.
Oh, yeah,
Back.
okay. Yeah, this has been a problem, I think. This form is the same as the one that SMAS uses. But this is what we use in April. And this goes back to the Center for Coastal Studies instead of SMAS. We've had a problem that people forget to put the total real depth of the pond in here, where it says total depth of pond. But my name is there, telephone number, and
So let's just take
you're
a real example.
You're just putting in, okay, let's take, I don't know, let's take Herring Pond, okay. Put in the pond name, you've done this, put in the total depth.
11 meters.
The date, the date and the time. But here where you're doing dissolved nutrients, DIN, and you're doing total phosphorus, total nitrogen, what we were taught by Krista years ago is you put down, say, 0.5, and you put a cross on DIN, and you put a cross on TPTN. And then you take your next level, which you've done, which say it's 3 meters in most ponds. Put in 3 meters and then cross on both of those. So they know they're getting 2 samples for each level. And then you'll be doing more levels for the ponds that are deeper. But that's what we've done. This is nothing new, but it has been a problem for people to, I think, to fill it out completely. And then down here, the name of the sampler and the date and the time that you left it off. And then I put my name under that.
So when you're not there, you still drop it in your freezer and somebody
Yes.
else gets it, but they have to be there, or you?
No, nobody
No, no.
has to be
Okay.
there. No, you're just putting it in the freezer and making sure the form goes on the door of the refrigerator.
Okay.
Questions about that?
Where it says sampling and then date and time, it's kind of redundant. Do we have to fill in?
Yeah, heaven forbid you should do it twice, right?
Well,
It's
like,
9:05.
You
it's
read
not-
so well.
9:09.
It's the time
Yeah,
you
I know.
actually did the sampling.
Yeah, that's the time you actually did the sample in theory, but we have to put down the beginning time
Oh, you
and the
mean,
end
so
time.
it's gonna be 30 seconds different? for
Yeah,
each one? Okay.
we
Could
have
be a
not
minute or
been-
two.
The first one
We have
and then
not
the
been
last
talking about that.
They can
But you were first and last, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Try it, Paul.
So you
Just
re-
try it.
I've been doing it.
Yeah.
Sandy just wants to see how efficient we are.
Yeah, right.
God, they were out for an hour and a half.
It's a prize for the monkeys.
Least amount of
I'm-
Most efficient sampler award. You
You
didn't
should
know
be able to
about
do a
that.
pond and a deep pond and
I'm gonna,
an hour
there's
and
an
a shallow
app for
pond.
it. I'm
much
gonna
less.
just have my phone and sit there and talk to it.
Our great pond sampler is in here, she's Ann. She's out there for a while.
So, any other questions about equipment? Treat it with care, because most of this stuff's been used for many, many years, it's still in great shape, and that really helps down budgets. I did say a few minutes ago that your time is indeed worth a lot. There's been a federal number calculated of what volunteer time for doing what you're doing is worth. And not many states have also calculated that number. And I think in Massachusetts, what, $27 or $30 an hour? So pat yourself on the back. Keep track of your mileage and put it on your income tax.
Both mileage too.
Yeah.
And additional, just little, we're trying to give you as many tools in your toolbox as we can. So these are rather dark, but we did laminate these this year for each pond. So depending on which pond you have, I don't know how, we'll just maybe have folders or so you can take it into your clipboard or whatever. And then all the GPS readings at the back. So the Natural Resources Department went out with new buoys or repositioned the buoys this year. I did get an email from Mike O'Connor. I'm not sure, they've gone out to most ponds,
They
right?
haven't done great yet, and maybe another.
Oh, so, but they've gone out to most ponds so far, and they've taken that on. So if through your experienced sampling efforts, you find that something is different, let me know, and, we'll work with that information.
We're gonna try to print these later, so, I mean, you guys know where your buoys are and where they're supposed to be. You probably triangulate without the buoy, but what Natural Resources did was take the coordinates that I had given them and convert them, and then they went out and looked, and one of them, for instance, Jemima, was in Nauset Marsh. So clearly, one or two of them got translated incorrectly. But they're generally, these coordinates that Mike has put down are good, but generally you know where the buoy's supposed to be. You know if it's traveled. The one thing I want to ask you is they were going to write research on them, because sometimes they get toyed with. And that didn't happen. So I have in my closet two very broad magic markers. So it'd be easy to do research on there when you're out there, if you can remember. One
And
more thing
maybe
to do.
Eastham,
was gonna
you know,
say,
the town,
yeah.
you know,
Will
town
that
of
work once they're
Eastham.
wet?
You could dry
I
it.
don't know, yeah.
Just dry.
Bring
Bring a
some
towel.
paper towel, I have paper towels in the closet too.
And just so I know, what pond have you been doing, Roger?
Bridge.
Bridge?
But he's not,
So
but he's
see if
not,
that looks.
but he's not doing bridges yet.
Small.
Yeah, wait a minute, wait a minute.
All right,
Let me give out the list, and we'll, Roger, you and
Yeah, that
Charles are doing
that looks pretty good.
master in school.
Yeah, we got repotted.
You got reponded.
reponded, all
Already
right.
funded.
But does that look accurate, Roger, from the past?
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
Okay,
Yeah, there was one time we went out and it was
Yeah.
like way in the back.
okay,
It was
there's,
like-
okay. But you know, from, you know, just tell us,
They have depot there?
Is that,
Yeah,
do you know where
I
it is? Isn't that Muddy Pond?
Yes, it is,
Yeah.
yep, yep, which they'd rather be called something else, but.
All right, we get a double. Cool. Get the paddle around.
Would like to be called Muddy, would like to be called.
They don't want to be called muddy, I don't know why.
Where is depot?
Keeps the riffraff away.
Oh, yeah.
Just gonna say, looking from the bike trail, looks like a.
At Depot, you can hang out at the library after you dad, you know,
That's right.
clean up and.
No, and I'm hoping that I can
Minister.
reassign you since you said it's hard to doing, right? Okay.
Donna, where do you go in
You
from?
can decide.
We use a boat at Gibson.
So I
Gibson
see
rowboat.
it's a bridge.
Nice.
Yeah.
There's two of them.
Fiddle with a boat, so.
That's all
Yeah.
So you do the, we do
Well,
in the
they were
marsh.
very invested in this.
Yeah.
So-
Oh, yeah.
we're actually doing.
We started last year testing in
Yeah.
March.
Yeah.
And there's a doctor.
We're swapping a canoe every, so I'm getting a launch, you
So-
know,
but that's
permit, so
good.
you keep an active there.
It's nice with the boat always there.
Oh, yeah.
So Charles and I haven't done this, so are you sure?
But it's
How deep
it's
is it?
it's all right.
In the marsh,
And
just
it's-
a meter.
walking through the
So,
Then you know
not even.
You could get a motorboat?
No, it's canoe.
It's all-
You could have, we could have gotten a motorboat, but,
If you would rather do Higgins.
I don't have one.
Meetings right back.
I could try both.
but there were some people that did motorboat, I think in
Is it something
the
like-
salt pond, that people tested.
Well, we're gonna put, you know, within those.
Because I- Yeah, I just couldn't sign up for the
If
dates,
you
but I
guys are
told her
assigned to this
people
one, too.
need a ride at
That's
some
fine, I
point,
get it.
somebody could call.
In the marsh?
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
Because
all
you
deep
can-
enough to.
like
go
I
on
launched at
motorboat.
the yacht club down there.
Person resources.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you could. Any
Or you could launch
information,
it
you know, give us
anyway.
all the expertise.
Or is that not deep?
Yeah, that wouldn't be
So
good.
highly of you.
I was like a 17-foot.
Yeah, and then we'll have.
So guys,
some
basically
information
you're
back.
doing the
I,
concept.
I launched my canoe there, but it's just such a
This whole
gradual.
way up by
Yeah.
Salt Pond, though.
I knew, and two assignments are new.
Yeah, that's-
Sandy,
Yeah.
do I,
Yeah, you can launch that. I think she's
I just
still
do a top
Okay.
down reading on
And
this.
We got a couple of,
Yeah, it's on the back of that sheet.
You just do that one.
Yeah, here you go.
Yeah.
And you're together.
Yes.
It's on the back. It is on the back. Have yours?
Yeah, I'm picking up a new pond and my old
For the
pond is
printing.
on, you know, posted GPS, the one that you
But
sent.
And you're
she's not
printing
doing
It's
using
in my
that.
backyard.
I don't know how you do
And I
it.
put the
This is
sand
not
and I
good.
put the anchor.
It's like he's showing a map.
Yes, yeah.
Pretty
Is that-
Doing it.
Yeah.
We used to do Jemima.
About 6 inches deep.
There will be a slide. It's a
Good year it's been.
Well, yeah, I
Blow out.
usually, I figure it out, I've never played with that thing,
Do the thing.
but she has, and she's not here, so.
So guys, let me just, before Carolyn talks about plants, which is not something we've ever talked about. Hey Frank,
Do we have a boat?
high school teacher.
Yeah.
I responded.
No,
You need to go to squirt
Well, I guess-
bars.
I mean, I have no idea what.
Okay,
There's not that much that's different. I'm a little nervous about your difficulty in calibrating the meters, that's making me nervous. Is there something different that makes you uncomfortable with what you were doing before?
I don't know, Roger always did it.
Roger always did it. As long as one member of the team knows, that's it.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
okay, I just thought for a moment we might talk about plants. There's a couple of,
Okay, well,
Once in April.
once.
there's a couple of publications which are provided by the state of Massachusetts. One on a guide to aquatic plants in Massachusetts, not totally comprehensive, but a start. and one called A Guide to Selected Invasive Non-Native Aquatic Species. So I think you can, I don't know whether these are still in print.
I have a bunch of them, yeah. As long as you don't, if you take them home and review them, or you want to take them out, I don't have enough for everybody, but I can have them in my closet.
So, both good resources. What I did, some of the states around us, like New Hampshire, because of its large lakes and the people who come to their lakes specifically on vacation to fish or whatever, has done an enormous amount of work on their ponds. So what I did, I was on the web last night and grabbed off this, which is very similar to this. So I copied several pages for you. And the reason I did that was, if you look at the beginning, it talks about the plants you can see in various places. Submerged, below water level, on the second page, things that float at the surface, things that are called emergent, that come up above the surface but are definitely have their roots in the water. And then ferns, shrubs, vines, trees that are around the edges. And then on about the third and fourth pages is a list. And I think this is a fairly comprehensive list of most of the things you might see around here. The one tree that you could definitely add to this is the tupelo, which I think is about at the northern end of its range here, so this doesn't go into New Hampshire. So you could add tupelo to the list of trees, and you'll know it when you see it in the fall because it's about the first thing to turn red, and they're right along the edges of our ponds, and they're beautiful. So if you wanted to start thinking about learning some of the pond aquatic life, you might go through this list and learn a few of them. The other thing that is becoming quite apparent is that these plants get moved from pond to pond. Some of it obviously happens like a duck that lands in a pond that has duckweed in it, for example. Little tiny, small, floating plant. One of the world's smallest plants, but flowering plants. And then takes off, and some of that stuff probably goes with the duck as it lands in the next pond. So things do get transported from pond to pond. People also transport things on their gear, which is why we've talked about cleaning off your gear if you're going from pond to pond. And in New Hampshire, they actually hire college students, young people during the summer to be at town landings and make people wash off their boats before they go to another pond, or see that the boat is clean before they put it into their ponds, because they're so afraid that some of these tiger shrimp, obnoxious things are going to go from one to the other.
Those are zebra mussels. Yeah, they bring.
So, I don't know why I was doing this one day, but I was reading the Cape Cod Times, and I happened to be looking at the legal column. I don't spend my time reading it, I can guarantee you. And there was an ad for Barnstable, I believe, looking for a company that would come in and kill the hydrilla that was in one of their lakes. So there are some of these things that, if they get started, reproduce in huge, vast quantities and make the lake impenetrable by canoe, kayak, or boat, or whatever it is.
And I can add to that. The company that was hired to do that in Barnstable is Aquatic Control Technologies, who actually did our pond remediation chemical application of alum in both herring and great pond. And now they have merged with a larger national company, Solitude. So they're actually the biologist that we have coming down to do the survey of Schoolhouse Minister's Pond. So hydrilla is in, and actually we had, I think several of you might have attended the Division of Conservation and Recreation came down. Their water resource experts came down and did a discussion with us about invasives. I can't recall his name.
I was there.
It was
A few years ago.
That was great.
it was excellent. And so if this group has any interest, he was fabulous. And what he asked for the training is actually for you all to go out in your pond and maybe bring in some samples. And we went through these workbooks because it's very complicated, at least it is to me. It's really your field, not mine.
it is.
But it's very complicated to figure out what category is it in, and he assisted in the individual work teams. I thought it was an excellent exercise personally, and I couldn't do something like that enough because things change with the seasons, and so it was a really great training, and I'd be happy to pull that together if there was an interest, but, you know, just to keep your eyes open, you know, when you're out there, because you are, you know, the,
Eyes and ears.
yeah, exactly.
Hydrola has not been found yet in Orleans, I mean, Eastham, it hasn't been Orleans, right? But it's in
How
Barnstable.
do you spell that?
Hydrilla, and it's really hard to tell apart from several other native plants.
And honestly, the situation in Barnstable with Mystic Lake was actually discovered because they were there because we had a cyanobacter bloom. And so Solitude was there, and really that was their focus, looking at that issue. And then they discovered the extent of the hydrilla. And there's that ongoing effort, because once it's present, it's really hard to eradicate. And also, as Carolyn's saying, that was a message that DCR brought to us, is that these things can get transported. And you don't think of a kayak
No.
as being a transport, you know, yeah, and you have a motor on a boat or something like that, you're a little more in
Trailers and
tune.
all that kind of
You're in
stuff.
tune with it, but, you know,
Yes.
so, and just if I could just, one more thing, in Schoolhouse Minister's Pond, we're doing this vegetative survey, and our limnologist has suggested that really what we need from our volunteers maybe is a little more training in identifying cyanobacter. And so there, coincidentally, on Wednesday, April 12th, is going to be a free APCC sponsored training on how to identify cyanobacter. And we have had in Eastham an occurrence at Moll's Pond, where, I mean, we were very fortunate that an abutter's dog went out and ingested some of the algae and almost died. If she didn't know how to react, the dog would have died. So, you know, that's how we were alerted to it, and I think that's not an uncommon way that people find out, but wouldn't it be better if we could be proactive? And so if you, as eyes and ears out there, were trained to identify it, you know, no matter what pond you know, if you're visiting a pond, it's something to be diligent about. So it tends to, once it's in a pond too, it can reoccur, but we haven't seen it or haven't investigated anything at Moll's Pond, but that's definitely something that our limnologist has suggested.
So we've had
I
it,
think you told me once we had an outbreak at Muddy as well.
I don't remember that.
I said that?
Yeah.
No, we've only had one
I don't
Okay,
think so.
all right,
since I've been here.
okay.
so we've had it in a couple of times in our two ponds in Orleans. And what happens is that somebody reports it, whatever. In my situation, I go to the head of our health department, like Jane. She calls the state, and there are state folks who come down and test for it. And what they're looking for is how much of the volume of cells in a given amount of water. But the cells put out a toxin, and it's toxic to any mammal that might drink it. It's also not good to get on your skin, like kids going swimming and so on. So it is something that we really need to all learn how to identify.
Mhm.
I'm going to the workshop, and a couple of my people
Yeah.
on my committee are too.
And it can be somewhat subjective because, as you know, we have winds and we have currents. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's not all like a uniform thing. It gets driven. And so maybe it doesn't exceed a threshold, but it's really important that we're in tune with observation of what's happening.
The state will then post the pond and come back at a time in the future, test it again until it's safe, and then they'll take down the signs that say do not enter. So it is important that we kind of keep track. It can look like a muddy, green, swirly soup that covers the surface of the water. And if we have a hard wind, it will kind of blow in one direction and back the other, but it's, it has a lot of different looks to it.
Where my shirt?
Yes. Anyway, I gave you in this handout a couple of other plants that are invasives, not toxic. One of them is Phragmites, which you get along the edge of salt marshes as well as freshwater ponds. Really hard to eradicate once it gets started. And purple loosestrife,
You got that.
which you may have in places, and there are a number of others.
It's pretty.
This handout I took off the web last night. They have this entire manual online, and these are all in color. So if you wanted to print yourself off a couple of the pages, then you could create your own book.
You're giving us those,
I just handed them out.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can download it and forward it.
Thank you.
The other thing which is fun to look for are rare species. And I don't, although I have been on all of your ponds, it was more than 10 years ago, and I wasn't at that time looking for species of plants. I was doing the mapping of your bathymetry.
I meant to mention that, Carolyn.
I did, I
They're
already
all
did.
with them.
But there are also things like Plymouth gentian, and I don't know whether you have Plymouth gentian on any of your
We have it on
ponds.
Harrington.
So it's usually right on the edge where there's a sandy beach. It's a beautiful little pink flower. It usually sticks out of the water a little bit, but if it's really dry, it's a very dry year, it may not appear at all. So it's variable and when it shows up, but to me it's fun to, they're beautiful flowers, it's great to see them, and it's nice even for residents to know that they shouldn't be running up and down the beach and walking over them or dragging their canoes over them or whatever, because they really are a rare plant in the state of Massachusetts.
I understand that Minister Schoolhouse is the furthest northern pond where it's found.
Wow.
And I haven't seen it there, but that's what I was told by Arden.
So, you all probably know water lilies, and what other plants do you typically see on your ponds?
Batterdock is common.
Spatterdock?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a yellow flower. It looks somewhat like a water lily, but it's a coarse yellow flower, smaller than a water lily.
Rather than a white flower. And you may see emergent ones along the edges, so we were talking about grasses. And some people say, okay, it's green and it's tall, it must be a grass. There are also sedges and rushes that look grass-like. Sedges have triangular stems, so if you touch the stem and put it between your fingers, you realize it's three-sided. So you might find those all intermixed.
We have pickerelweed.
Yes.
Pickerweed.
One of the things, Carolyn, that we have, and
Arrowhead?
we should be noting, but it's hard to identify, is the gray willow. It's very invasive, and I'm pretty sure we have it on at least one pond, but getting rid of it is very difficult, and identifying it's very difficult. Gray willow. So what do you think?
You might also get iris around some of your ponds. We have a yellow iris that was planted at one of our ponds by a homeowner many, many years ago. And that one is invasive, and it's circling the pond, and people have fought it back, and so it's knowing some of these little things that you might look for.
Can I just ask a question? When you all are out in your boats, kayaks, whatever, do you bring your phones? Do you?
Most of the time.
Yeah.
Do you? You know, what I might suggest, if you want to take pictures of some of the vegetation as you're out there, and then as we have employed Liz Moran as our limnologist in the past, and we have fact sheets in our action pond report on, we can build on that, maybe include some information, and maybe we'll be seeing great things, and maybe we'll see things that we should be. So, maybe we can, if you want to supply me with those, I'll try to pull it all together.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Last year, one of our volunteers found a plant that she's been doing this for years, she didn't remember seeing before. So she actually pulled up a little sample of it and brought it in. And it took us a long time to figure out what it is, because it's not in any of these books. Well, once she did that, and once we had a name for it, and I started looking for it, I saw it everywhere.
What was it, Carol?
But it was one of those things that has a long name.
And no common name.
It's like something, no, it is a common name. It's like something like false pennywort, but it has five words to it, I think. Anyway, we realized that once we started looking, it's in damp soil around the edge of the pond. It might be in the pond if it's really wet. So when she saw it was in the pond, and she thought, okay, aquatic plant, I should know this. So you might find some interesting new things that nobody's ever documented before.
If you pull it up and it turns out that was the last of an almost extinct species.
Then you're in trouble. You don't report it.
The rule of thumb is, if you see 100, you take one.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like lady slippers, you know.
Unless it's an aspen tree, because they're all,
Yeah.
you're in trouble.
Oh my God. We don't.
Yeah, there's only one tree, but.
Right.
Any other questions or things we need to talk about?
I think the one point I want to make is that we're giving you lots and lots of information. Some of it you've had before, you've learned a lot more today. But basically, don't get really anxious about some of these very fine details because we're looking for trends. We're looking, it's not a very, very precise thing that we're doing, and they know that. The people who are evaluating this stuff know that.
I think that the things you've covered are the key. Preparation before you even get on the boat
Yeah.
helps. Get yourself organized. And calibrating, obviously. But those I would think would be the key things.
And not dunking the meter head.
Right. Or yourself.
Or yourself, yes.
So when's the spring sampling this year?
It can begin anytime. It's April.
It's April.
Yeah.
But
You don't,
But
you
you
know
know
that.
Beautiful
So you
day.
don't want to go out, don't risk your life or your health.
Hmm?
We can go
Next week
into May,
may be
we always
anytime.
do.
We're bound to have a nice day,
Next week
sooner or
may be.
It'd be
later.
nice, yeah, when it's
I
calm.
think Monday, Tuesday's supposed to be nice.
Yeah.
They would really like to have the samples before May 15th, but beyond.
Of course, if it's nice, I'm gonna be golfing instead.
So anytime.
So you and your partner have to figure it
Vice
out.
versa. The great thing about this spring sampling is you really could do it morning or afternoon. It doesn't matter, because we don't have to get the samples someplace off Cape. You just have to get them to Sandy's.
No tides to get.
We didn't talk about the fall sampling, and we have some directions for it. It may change slightly based on where it's going, where the samples are going. But for that, you use those big round bottles, and no filtering, and you all know this because you've all done this, except for Joanna. So that's much easier sampling, but it's got to be to me by 2:30, because then we carpool it to Barnstable every day that we bring it, every day that you sample.
The only thing you want to do is just to fill it to the neck, because when they get it to the other end, before they go through a filtration process, they want to homogenize the contents. They want to shake it, and if you don't leave them in the airspace, it's no place to shake. So
But
just.
it's not frozen, they can dump out a little, right?
Yeah, but then
Yeah.
who knows what was floating on top
Yeah.
versus what was at the bottom, so.
Yes.
And just one more plug for all of our highly desirable testing programs. Anyone that twice a year doing ponds isn't enough for you. We invite you and encourage you to participate in the MEP sampling, which is, it's basically the same thing,
Very similar.
very similar. Depths aren't as deep and so forth.
And it's salt water.
And it's salt water. So, and you know, we're going to be enlisting our volunteers for that and getting started. And this will be our second year of working with Orleans. We're trying to establish 3 consecutive years of data that then we can go back to SMAS and recalibrate some of the modeling that was done that was the basis for the earlier report. So that's
It's July, August, and into September.
so
5 times.
if
How many
anybody
times?
has,
5 times during those.
so if anybody has an interest, if you just want to, let me know. I can include you on the loop of, so that worked pretty seamlessly last year for a big joint 4-town effort. So Chatham, Harwich, Orleans, and Eastham were all sampling at the same time. Brewster. Yeah, did you do it?
No.
No, okay. But it worked through the town of Chatham, deserves a lot of credit for all the work that they put into it. Bob Duncanson, who's the director there, did some of the initial training like what Carolyn did. And their staff actually, we coordinated to get samples to them, and then they took them up to Dartmouth. So it was a huge, huge effort and very coordinated. I mean, it is a ton of water samples that they receive
Pickup truck full.
in the basement of their town hall, and it's all extremely
Just in Eastham, we had 5
organized.
sites, didn't we?
Yeah.
5
Oh,
sites
they've got-
just in
You've got how
Eastham.
many, 25?
And then all of Pleasant.
And it was
So
big
it
models.
was, it's a truckload. They didn't know if they could get it into a truck, and they did. So it was a really great effort. So, and they've been doing it for years. So
Go climbing too.
And you get really cool toolboxes.
you get even.
Not just
So
a
if you
bucket.
think this bucket is cool, you get a toolbox when you do the MEP. So it's a step up, but.
Okay, any other questions?
Carol, I
Charles?
had one. For the first time last night this season, I heard the spring people.
Yeah.
Oh, neat.
Yep.
Good, my dad thought it would still be too cold, and I thought, no, I bet they're starting.
I could hear each one.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah. Record the ponds, you listen, hear them in too.
Well, he's got, he's next to a wet,
Yes,
sump pond.
yes, they're more likely to be.
Yeah.
Really wet one. Yep, there's spotted salamanders out there doing their thing
Oh, yeah, don't drive around on a rainy night looking, you'll drive right over 'em.
tonight. Okay, thank you all for coming.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.